News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. There's your closing bell for this Wednesday on Wall Street, where a record-breaking run in stocks gained fuel as the U.S. reached a trade agreement with Japan, and there was speculation about a similar deal with the European Union. We'll get into all of that just ahead, but first, we do bring you the closing numbers each day here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 gained 49 points. That's a record. NASDAQ gained 127 points. It landed at a record. The Dow gained 508 points. That's more than 1% higher. Not quite a record. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.39%. The 2-year yield at 3.89%. Now, the House Oversight Panel has issued a subpoena for Ghislaine Maxwell, who is a convicted sex offender and former associate of Jeffrey Epstein. A federal judge in Florida has denied a request from the Trump administration to release the grand jury transcripts into that investigation. But now lawmakers are asking to hear from Maxwell herself. That hearing is set for August 11th. Turning now to trade, which is what boosted the markets, the U.S. is reportedly close to a trade deal with the EU. Diplomats say member states could be ready to accept a 15% tariff. EU officials are pushing to have that cover sectors including cars. Steel and aluminum imports above a certain quota would still face the 50% duty. The U.S. did land a trade deal with Japan. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says the deal includes Japanese financing for American companies.
They're not the operator. It's not Japanese companies. So when people get confused, this isn't like a Japanese company like Toyota coming in and building a factory. No, that's Toyota.
Lutnick says Japan was not likely to open its markets the way President Trump wanted, so they came up with the tariff plan.
I suggested to them a $400 billion fund where they would give to the president the financing to go build out your whatever you think for national security. Go build it. We'll back you. And that's the model. Treasury
Secretary Scott Bessent explained how the U.S. agreed to the 15% tariff rate with Japan.
They came to us with the idea of a Japan-U.S. partnership where they are going to provide equity, credit guarantees, and funding for major projects in the U.S. So they got the 15% rate because they were willing to provide this innovative financing mechanism.
Republican Senator Bill Haggerty of Tennessee says Japan is tough, but an honest negotiator.
I think the Japanese are difficult to negotiate with, but they keep their word once a deal has been made. I know that's not true every place in the world, but the Japanese certainly do.
Download the Bloomberg Surveillance podcast. You can hear all of our interviews with Commerce Secretary Lutnick, Treasury Secretary Bessent, and Senator Haggerty. On Capitol Hill, House Speaker Mike Johnson says he is disenchanted with Fed Chair Jay Powell. Speaking with Bloomberg reporters, Johnson signaled he is open to modifying the Federal Reserve Act, the 1913 law that established the central banking system. FEMA Acting Administrator David Richardson faced questions on Capitol Hill, where he denied the Federal Emergency Management Agency was slow to respond to the Texas flood disaster. He was questioned by Infrastructure Subcommittee ranking Democrat Greg Stanton.
Federal law requires FEMA to anticipate the needs of states in disasters.
The support that was so critical to the people and the state of Texas on their worst day was on target, on time, and that is what they told me.
President Trump had talked openly about eliminating FEMA as soon as December. Richardson could not confirm what FEMA's future might be. The United Nations top court in a landmark advisory opinion says countries could be in violation of international law if they fail to take measures to protect the planet from climate change, and that nations harmed by the effect of climate change could be entitled to reparations. A federal judge in Maryland prohibited the Trump administration from taking Kilmar Abrego Garcia into immediate immigration custody, assuming he's released from jail in Tennessee while he awaits trial on human smuggling charges. The judge ordered the government to restore the federal supervision that Abrego Garcia was under before he was wrongfully deported to his native El Salvador in March. His trial is set for January. Brian Kohberger has been sentenced to 4 life sentences in prison without parole for the brutal stabbing deaths of 4 University of Idaho students back in 2022. No motive has been offered, and Kohberger chose not to speak at that hearing. The Education Department says it opened probes into 5 universities: Louisville, Nebraska, Omaha, Miami, Michigan, and Western Michigan. The investigations are based on complaints alleging that certain scholarships exclude American students over their national origin and target programs that provide support for undocumented students or those with DACA status, as well as programs for LGBTQ students or people of color. The Trump administration has released details of its AI action plan aiming to boost artificial intelligence development in the U.S. by loosening regulations and expanding energy supplies for data centers. It recommends revamping the permitting process and streamlining environmental standards. It would counter perceived liberal bias in AI systems dubbed woke AI. The administration plans to use executive orders to set the plan in motion. The U.S. has signed off on a possible sale of Bradley vehicles to Ukraine. It is worth $150 million and would provide equipment and services for the refurbishment of the Bradley vehicles. The Bradley fighting vehicle was designed in the 1960s, in use through the 1980s, and was meant to serve as an armored personnel carrier and a tank killer. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. This is Bloomberg.